Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this Asia Virtual Academy lecture series. This is the third week of our lecture series. And this week, we are proudly invite Professor CrestiaBanares from BIcol University. She's going to give us a speech about the Filipinnovation. The topic is the golden ticket to inclusivity. Professor Banares, she has been the technical staff in BIcol University Center of Technology Commercialization and Enterprise Development. She also teaches in BIcol University College of Business of Economics and Management. She earned his master in business in BIcol University Graduate School, and also the BA on the College of Arts and Science. And Professor Banares has a great rich experience leading with the incubation center for BIcol University for years. And she also has rich experience for instructing students for promoting their innovations and they lead a lot of digital projects as well. So I think the role of the universities in the era after the millennium have enormous change. In NUK, we also encourage students to explore more in innovation thinking. So last year, for example, NUK initiated a campus, a folk in folk. We name it as the International Youth of Sustainability Leadership Program. We choose 3 spots nearby the university. One is near fishery villages, and one is for military village. We invite students overseas who study in Taiwan and join with our SDG ambassador students. We send 8 groups of students to the village, fishery villages, and these military veteran villages. And what they do is to create new models how to revitalize the local communities, especially for like fishery village, many the elderly or age issues has slowed down the economic growth in these communities. So if the university encourages students to emerge with the communities, as well as to encourage their innovation thinking with a connection with their expertise, I think they will have a great help for the community and even for the society as a whole. Okay, so that's a briefly introductions and about a little bit comments about the Professor Banares' background information. So without further delay, may I give the before the the lectures, I would like to invite Dr. Dimson from BIcol University. Would you like to give us a little bit welcome message?
Sure. My pleasure. I'd like to welcome each one of you to, this is actually our third Tuesday, Tuesday webinar. So this is apparently our webinar Tuesdays. So I would like to welcome each one of you to our third series of the Asia Virtual Academy 2021 Spring Lecture Series Program. This is brought to you by the National University of Kaohsiung with their global partners, including BIcol University, and of course, including the Nong Lam University in Vietnam. We also have like Universitas Tanjung Pura in Indonesia, and of course, the National Chung Ching University in Taiwan. So today we will be having a lecture about Filipinnovation, the golden ticket to inclusivity, the common ground of this one is actually to marry entrepreneurship and innovation the Filipino way, so that we can achieve a new industrial policy towards achieving an inclusive and sustainable development growth that generates more employment or job opportunities and entrepreneurship in our country as well. So that's it. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being with us today. So we're quite excited to listen to our next speaker for this April 27th session.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Timson, for your welcome remarks. And we also have the speaker, the distinguished speaker for last week. That's from Nong University. Dr. Tree is also online. So, Dr. Tree, would you like to give us some welcome message?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wu, and good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure to join this third lecture given by Professor CrestiaBanares, and I very much look forward to our very productive seminar today. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome all of you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Tree. Okay, so without further delay, I think I will give the floor to Professor Banares. The floor is yours. Okay, please start your lecture. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm about to share my screen. Hold on a second. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So for today, I will be sharing to you startups and commercialization from mind to market with the topic of Filipinnovation, the golden ticket to inclusivity. So my topic, my discussion will have the following breakdown. So the first will be about the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem. The next will be about Filipinnovation, the entrepreneurship roadmap of the Philippines. And lastly, I will be discussing Mind to Market, BIcol University's proactive approach to Filipinnovation. So fostering entrepreneurship has become a core emphasis in economic development. The prime symbol for fostering entrepreneurship as an economic development strategy is the entrepreneurship ecosystem. When we think about ecosystems, what comes to mind initially, at least for me, are frogs, flowers, moss, a list of elements that make up the whole. But Oxford explains it a little further by saying that an ecosystem is not a list of things within a community, but rather the interaction or the relationship of those things. On this planet, everything is part of an ecosystem, such as the watershed, the insects, the trees, the grass, and also the business that is running or on the road of growth. And there is such a thing for entrepreneurship as well. According to Mason and Brown, the entrepreneurial ecosystem is a set of different individuals who can be potential or existing entrepreneurs, organizations that support entrepreneurship, that can be businesses, venture capitalists, business angels, and banks, as well as institutions like universities, public sector agencies, and entrepreneurial processes that occur inside the ecosystem, such as the business birth rate, the number of high potential growth firms, the serial entrepreneurs, and their entrepreneurial ambition. The entrepreneurship ecosystem usually consists of 6 individual domains. The first of these domains is the policy domain. This domain pertains to the pillars of government regulations that could perk up or scale down the capabilities to start the expansion of the business. These include various elements such as the ease of doing business, incentive on taxes, and laws that could be friendly with the business. It also includes the physical structure where there is access to the infrastructure, transport, as well as telecommunication that also affect the businesses, according to the World Economic Forum. Next to this is the finance domain. This pertains to the financial alternatives that are available with the startup of businesses, including investors, venture capital, private equity, and also debt access. According to the World Economic Forum, there is a positive relationship between the flow of finance and business growth. Then we also have the culture domain. It has been argued that starting cultural support is required for an enterprise to establish an emerging entrepreneurial ecosystem. The tolerance of risk and failure within an enterprise, priority given to self-employment, innovation celebrations, success stories, research cultures, and role models are the aspects that are always a huge importance in cultural support. Another one is the support domain. This domain pertains to a variety of idiosyncratic institutions, organizations, and assistances that the businesses to create and expand, as well as some actors that include mentors, consultants, professionals such as accounting firms, incubators, accelerators, human resources, and so on. Then we also have the human capital domain. The quality and the quantity of the workforce are the human capital domain. This domain is based on the skills and abilities that people have, such as technical and management talent, the experience of an entrepreneurial company, immigrant workforce access, and the availability of outsourcing. A combination of such components affects the growth of the business. Within the domain of human capital, education and training are considered. And finally, we also have the market domain. This is the representation of the consumer's willingness to buy products as well as services of a company. Further, the potential of the consumers is considered as a key aspect, and there are some other components of the market domain, like the national and international market, small, large, and medium-sized businesses that are vital to reach businesses and grow across a region. Along this line, an innovation ecosystem is also a necessity. It is, according to Chromatic, a system for repeatedly delivering new, sustainable business models. It is composed of people, but also processes and systems that can support a concept from ideation to a scalable business. The domains that can be found in the innovation ecosystem are universities, the industry, non-government organizations, the government, and even financial institutions. It is somewhat similar to the entrepreneurship ecosystem, if you can see. But what we must understand is that the innovator is very different from the entrepreneur. And so the innovation ecosystem is somewhat different also from the entrepreneurship ecosystem. The innovator is one who has the ability to have original ideas. They come up with all kinds of brilliant ideas all the time, but they are focused on the product and not necessarily getting it out on the market. Some might even say that they are very much in love with their products. Some innovators even cannot fathom doing the dirty on getting their techs commercialized. But we all know that just having a good idea is never enough. And most good ideas never get translated into a commercially viable business. An entrepreneur is completely different. He understands that every idea can be incrementally improved, but the important thing is not to make the perfect product, but to actually bring it to the market and make a profit out of it. Innovators and entrepreneurs have a very different way of thinking. And while we may occasionally get an individual who is a combination, who is both an innovator and an entrepreneur, in reality, and in my experience as an educator, it is really quite difficult to get this combination in just one person. However, we must understand that we need both for our economy to grow. Just like a bicycle needs two wheels to run smoothly, we need both innovators and entrepreneurs to spur the economy. What these domains of both ecosystems tells us is that both the innovation and the entrepreneurship ecosystem lead to an innovative and new economic people's view, networks, as well as institutions. Interaction between these domains of the ecosystem is what spurs entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurial activity is regarded as the process in which the individual transforms the opportunities into creativity and innovation. It is in these ecosystems that allow for entrepreneurship to grow and prosper. While both the ecosystems have their own areas of focus, some of the elements leading to their success are pretty similar. The vision of the Philippines is to have an inclusive innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem thriving throughout the country and become an innovation-driven economy by 2030. But before we go there, let us first take a look at how the Philippines is faring in terms of our entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems. These figures are presented in the report assessing the Philippine entrepreneurship ecosystem to the World Bank. So let's take a look at and let's see the snapshot of innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in the Philippines. Let's see how strong the Philippine entrepreneurship system is compared to other countries. As these figures show, it would seem that over half of the world has a stronger entrepreneurship ecosystem than the Philippines, as we rank the 84th. We also suffer from a very low firm birth rate. A lot of startups in the Philippines, in addition to that, a lot of startups in the Philippines don't last more than 3 years. So we have a very low firm birth rate with only 300 compared to Malaysia and Thailand. Also, these figures also show that productivity is somewhat focused in the national capital region. So it's not evened out throughout the country. And I'm really sad to present that BIcol region, where we're from, is second to the last. So as you can see in these figures, productivity is really high in the area of NCR and CAR. But the other regions are lacking. So entrepreneurship and innovation is not evenly distributed throughout the country. When it comes to policy, we can say that it is less bureaucratically fun in the Philippines. In fact, we scored below zero on all aspects, including burden of government regulations, hiring and firing practices, competition, and impact of business rules in FDI. So we scored very low. It's bureaucratically not fun in the Philippines. When it comes to finance, which remains to be the most challenging aspect in starting a business in the Philippines, we also lag behind. So we only made, with our startups, we only made about $18 million in deals in 2017, as you can see. But when it comes to human capital, the Philippines is seen to still be investing in human capital growth, or as compared to investing in software. I mean, I don't see this as something negative, but this is an opportunity for companies to also invest in software. But this is the most interesting part of this presentation, because despite the numbers showing how negative, or how not really bad, but the Philippines is not really faring as well as their neighboring countries, we can see that the entrepreneurial culture in our country is very rich. As you can see here, we scored the top ranks in most of these aspects. Like, for example, in perceived opportunities, we scored really high, perceived capabilities, and no doubt, entrepreneurial spirit amongst Filipinos is really, really high. Now, what I want you to understand is that the Philippines is actually, the Philippine economy is actually made up mostly of MSMEs. Our economy is made up of mostly MSMEs, but these entrepreneurs are mostly necessity entrepreneurs. They engage in entrepreneurship because they need to, otherwise they wouldn't have a source of income. As compared to other countries, entrepreneurs engage in entrepreneurship because there are opportunities. So there are more necessity entrepreneurs in the Philippines than there are opportunity entrepreneurs here. So as you can see, the entrepreneurial spirit of Filipinos is very, very high. So is innovation and the high status. But when it comes to technology, we can see that Filipinos actually spend a lot of time online. We spend over 9 hours on the internet every single day. However, based on these numbers, not a lot of Filipinos purchase online. But I think that has changed because of the pandemic. So despite us not doing a lot of purchases online, I think it's because a lot of us don't really trust the, hold on a second. Okay, hold on. I just have a technical glitch. Okay. Is it okay if we take a 2-minute break? I just have a technical glitch. Anyone from the team?
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
We get back in just a bit.
So you are offline and get online again? Is that?
Yes. Hold on.
We started. Oh, okay. Yeah. So,嗯，我也不知道讲什么。
Can be seen? Sorry for that. Okay, can we see it again? So sorry. Okay, so let me continue. So as I was saying, while we don't do a lot of digital purchases online, this is actually a great potential for a lot of businesses out there as e-commerce is continuously growing. So as we can see, one of the main reasons is because internet in the Philippines is not as good as the others. So we also rank really low. However, when it comes to support as part of the entrepreneurship domain, we can see that the government has provided a lot of support and is continuously providing a lot of support to the entrepreneurship ecosystem of the country. The biggest win for us in the entrepreneurship ecosystem is the approval of the Innovative Startup Act, which aims to provide support to the startup ecosystem of the Philippines. All in all, it is important to understand that the innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem is both nurture and nature. It means that such an ecosystem is a result of some natural developments, and as some studies surmise, can be designed intelligently and intentionally. That is what the Philippine government endeavors, to intentionally create a combination of these ecosystems into a thriving ecosystem. Now, I'd like to point out that in comparison to traditional businesses or MSMEs, startups are entrepreneurial ventures that are scalable, disruptive, and solutions-based, similar to the likes of Uber, Airbnb, etc. These are the entrepreneurial ventures that the Philippines hopes to nurture. The Philippine government has made the bold move forward with innovation and entrepreneurship as a central pillar of the government's Inclusive Innovation Industrial Strategy, or I3S, with the launch of the Inclusive Filipinnovation and Entrepreneurship Roadmap during the Inclusive Innovation Conference back in October of 2018, in partnership with the DOST, or the Department of Science and Technology, and the Department of Trade and Industry. It outlined its strategies for the country to seize market opportunities and address the challenges of Industry 4.0. The roadmap covers 6 key elements. The first, strong government academe industry collaboration, human capital development, access to funding and finance, innovation policy and commercialization and research, entrepreneurial culture and support for startups, MSMEs and large enterprises to become more innovative, and development of industry clusters to position innovative industries for rapid growth. These are to be implemented through the regional inclusive innovation centers, which will be established initially in Cebu, Cagayan de Oro, Davao, and Legazpi, where BIcol University is. In order to achieve an ecosystem of inclusive innovation and entrepreneurship and bridge the gap, focus on these 6 elements encompassing innovation and entrepreneurship with particular goals is needed. There is a need to strengthen our policy environment by laying down an enabling environment through incentives and policies geared towards entrepreneurship and innovation. As the government provides a strong and enabling policy infrastructure, This spurs the acceleration of R&D, investments, innovation, and commercialization. There is also a need to create a conducive entrepreneurship and innovative culture, including entrepreneurship programs and making MSMEs more innovative, that exhibits a higher tolerance to risks and failures, thus encouraging innovation through entrepreneurship programs and making MSMEs innovative. There is also a need to align and strengthen the government industry education networks or the government industry education linkages. This means strengthening the relationship between the key players by promoting a closer collaboration and closer coordination between the academe, the industry, and the government. Also, there is a need to make capital more accessible. Fiscal support from a variety of traditional and new capital sources, both from government and private sector, as well as possible incentives, shall be explored and promoted. Access to capital may be sourced from family and friends, private equity, venture capitalists, angel investors, as well as government grants. Incentive schemes to promote innovative startups and entrepreneurship shall also be pushed. There is also a need to prepare an innovation-ready talent pool, and this entails shoring up on an innovation-ready workforce, providing a pool of technical and management talent ready for Industry 4.0 and digital technology. And finally, there is a need to position industry clusters to take advantage of the growth potential. This pertains to incubating innovation by positioning innovation industries for rapid growth. In the Philippines, these are the industry clusters for growth. So if you're looking to become an entrepreneur in the Philippines, these are the areas or the industry clusters where you could focus on. And these are the inspiring innovations that you could use in order to make the most of these industry clusters. Innovation is picking up in the Philippines, and it's expected to further accelerate with a number of public-private initiatives laid down. For one, the Philippines jumped 19 places to rank 54th out of 129 countries in this year's Global Innovation Index, from 73rd last year. With the innovation and entrepreneurship roadmap unveiled, the Philippine government is building a thriving ecosystem in the next few years for the startup community, and it has already begun. It is an exciting time to be in the Philippines, to be an entrepreneur in the Philippines. From just 100 startups currently, the Philippines targets to have 500 startups with a total valuation of $2 billion in the next few years. As the country continues to strengthen the innovation and entrepreneurship as an economic strategy, these initiatives are highly recommended. First is the establishment of regional inclusive innovation hubs. The establishment of regional inclusive innovation hubs will support and fill up the local industry needs across the Philippines, as these will connect the players, networks, and stakeholders within the inclusive innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. The hubs will also function as organic platforms for the emergence of local champions and leaders, and will be the medium in organizing, expanding, and mobilizing local communities of innovators and entrepreneurs. More importantly, hubs shall collectively serve as the cornerstone of the I3S and will play a vital role in economic transformation. Next to this is the development of human capital towards innovation and entrepreneurship. To reach this state of culture, programs to improve MSME competitiveness and innovation, upscale their performance, and provide technology adoption skills shall be undertaken. Likewise, support programs for startups that would encourage the growth of mentors, advisors, incubators, accelerators, and professional services shall be pushed. Moreover, HRD shall be more focused on innovation with experts and researchers in government, education, and industry sectors working closely together on research and development collaborations and technology transfer training programs for our current workforce to further boost our creative talent pool. And lastly, the government academe industry convergence. Above all, and to sustain innovation and entrepreneurship efforts, the strong convergence and coordination between and among the government, academe, and industry stakeholders should be strengthened. This shall be done through the revival of the Filipinnovation Council, composed of the different stakeholders from the three sectors. From there, more technical collaborations may be established that would pave the way for shared facilities, relevant market-oriented researches, more job-ready graduates, and entrepreneur-specific training programs. The linkage would also lead to more responsive curricula by our education sector to align with the needs of the industry. As a premier university in the BIcol region, allow me now to present to you what BIcol University has been doing as a proactive response to the country's efforts toward inclusive growth through innovation and entrepreneurship. The first is the establishment of regional inclusive innovation hubs. Among our President Mascareñas' 10-point agenda is building the BU Innovation and Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Hub that will ensure lifelong and relevant learning by serving as an open innovation platform for technical collaboration with the industry. With this, BU has built facilities like BU RFICC, or BIcol University Regional Food Innovation Center for Commercialization, which was established to enhance the innovative capacities of MSMEs in the region by helping entrepreneurs improve the quality of their existing products or develop new ones, as well as to create and test new products from concept to market testing. So the BU RFICC is mostly focused on food technology. We also have Fab Lab BIcol, the first in the BIcol region, which is a shared service facility to help local entrepreneurs produce high-quality outputs and propel the micro, small, and medium enterprises in the region. Then we also have CitySec, where I am from. It is called the BIcol University Center for Technology Commercialization and Enterprise Development. It is a center in the university that has been tasked to bringing the mind to the market. Its purpose is to initiate technology commercialization in the university. Finally, BIcol University is also home to the very first technology business incubator in the region, which is called Sili Deli. Now, the reason why we named it Sili Deli is because Sili is the BIcol word for chili. And we are known for very, very spicy food. So we named it Sili to represent the BIcol region, and Deli so that it could be a shortcut for delicatessen, where startups could go and shop for services that would help them grow their businesses. So Sili Deli is one of the grantees of DOST, along with top universities in the country to establish TBIs, or Technology Business Incubators. It offers comprehensive incubation programs to tech developers and startups. So if you have a technology, if you are a startup founder, Sili Deli, if you're in the BIcol region, then Sili Deli is the place that you go to in order to scale up. BIcol University is also strong in the development of human capital, but specifically towards innovation and entrepreneurship. Now, this is a program that began also in the year that the president also took, President Mascareñas also took his presidency. So back in 2015, STEP, as we call it, or the Student Training for Entrepreneurial Promotion, was implemented in 6 colleges or programs in BIcol University. And it aimed to determine whether it could successfully increase the entrepreneurial goal intentions, action planning, entrepreneurial self-efficacy, and business opportunity identification of the participants. Basically, it was a research, and we wanted to see if this intervention, this training intervention, could actually impact the propensity for entrepreneurship that students have. When the evaluations conducted in 2015 showed is that there is a significant effect in the training group. The research has resulted to an 18% in the startup rate, which is higher than the national startup rate of 6% at that time. And it has also resulted to a 200% increase in startup rate since the inception of the program. STEP has been contextualized to better fit Filipino learners. It is now being taught in all the programs of BIcol University through the general elective Entrepreneurial Mind. So you can just imagine that even civil engineering students, students who are studying to become teachers, students who are studying to become biologists or chemists are now studying entrepreneurship as well. They are now given an opportunity to seek entrepreneurship as a viable career option. So STEP has been incorporated in the general elective course we call Entrepreneurial Mind, and it is a subject that is taught university-wide. This is a move made by no less than the university president himself, Dr. Arnulfo Mascarenhas, in an executive order to have all programs include entrepreneurship as one of its electives, something I think that not a lot of other universities in the country has done. Presently, in this semester alone, there are 1,400 or 1,400 students who are undergoing STEP. So you could just imagine that the entire BIcol University, all of the students of BIcol University, all 20,000 students of BIcol University are now studying entrepreneurship. And so they have a viable career option to pursue entrepreneurship and become job makers rather than job seekers. And finally, with these facilities in place and our students being given the option to pursue entrepreneurship, ensuring a steady pipeline of innovation in the future, BIcol University is set up for the government-academe convergence. Presently, our TBI, Silly Delhi, is host to a total of 9 incubators, startups who are truly responsive to the needs of this generation, geared and ready for commercialization. 4 of these incubators are actually university grown. So these are researches that resulted to develop technologies and are now being groomed to become startups in the future. All these are BIcol University's take on Filipinnovation, our golden ticket to inclusivity. And with that, I end my presentation and I welcome any questions that you may have about innovation and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for the opportunity and good afternoon to everyone.
Amazing speech it's wonderful and amazing speech from Professor Banares. So we learned a lot from the incubation experience and the student motivation for entrepreneurship. Okay. May I have Dr. Dimson, if you have some suggestion or comments to add, maybe?
Not really, but just to summarize the talk of our speaker on the Filipinnovation as a golden ticket to inclusivity. So our talk this afternoon presents the need to combine the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem as a strategy for economic growth. So Professor Banares just presented to us an explanation of what these ecosystems are. And with that, she then presented how the Philippines' own entrepreneurship ecosystem stands up and what the government is currently doing right now to spur inclusive growth and by nurturing the ecosystems. So lastly, she also presented to us how BIcol University is faring or contributing in making sure that Filipinnovation is the golden ticket to inclusive growth. Thank you.
Your wonderful comments and heads up. Yeah. What about Professor Tree? Are you online? Do you want to join our discussion?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Dingu, and thank you, Professor CrestiaBanares, for a very wonderful presentation. Actually, the innovation now becomes very important. Actually, this morning at our university meeting, and we have a meeting for strategic planning. And one of the things that we put into strategic planning is innovation. Yeah, and we think that this is the only way that we can have to support the mission goal, the mission and the mandate of the university, because we are the this comprehensive university, and basically we are technical university, and if we integrate, actually we already have a center what we call for Center for Innovation, the name, but we want to upgrade it to become the Institute of Innovation. That in the strategy of the university to develop in the future. So your presentation is great, and I learned a lot from the Philippines. I spent like 3 years in the Philippines, but back 20 years ago, so I didn't know much. What happened. And now you give a very clear picture about the entrepreneurship ecosystem and innovation in the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for Dr. Tree's comments. I have also been in the Philippines, but maybe even longer than Dr. Tree, about 30 years ago. I've been in Manila and for University Ateneo de Manila when I was in college. Yeah, and when I visit the Philippines, I feel the energy and the innovations of the young peoples in Philippines, because we have a 7 days camp with Ateneo students. I was amazed about their thinking and their innovative and learning and experience with them. So it's not surprised me that the Filipinnovation is an ongoing issue, and is going to be a very rich for experience for BIcol University would like to pursue. As I discussed with Dr. Dimson on our last virtual meeting, we talked about the incubation experience, and I was amazed about the workshops that BIcol University have conducted with the government, academics, and industry, and I can also have some great help from the faculty members. And I'm also amazed about the idea of a citadel for the food technology. So we are also seeking for the cooperation opportunity with the BIcol University in terms of this food innovation technology. And I also contact with our faculties in life science departments, and hopefully that we can initiate for further cooperation in terms of joint seminars or joint workshops for training students and also the staff as well. Yeah. So I think we can proceed to the next stage of question and answer. So all the participants online, you can type your questions. And before that, I think I would like to have a video clips for you. In the meantime, that the Professor Banares could have more time to look into the question and you like to answer. The video clip is just I mentioned from the beginning of this IYSL program that we initiated last October. So I think if you can see what happened and from the videos, you will know what I just mentioned, that we have the competition after the camp. 8 groups of students will have their solutions and proposal for how to revitalize the fishery and the military inventory in villages. And some of the proposal is quite amazing and is receive a lot of positive feedbacks from our community leaders. That could be a first step for entrepreneurship, yes, and for building up a business model, maybe. Okay, so before we proceed to the question and answer, I'd like to share with you the video clip. And in the meantime, okay, just type your questions, and we'll have more time for Professor Banares to think it over.
Food is not just for eat. How to eat, how to cook. There are many culture, many habits inside the food, and also people who are going to cook them, and how they learn from their father, or came from their grandpa, or came from their father, and their grandpa or father. They came to Taiwan with the KMT Kuomintang's Air Force. So there are many stories inside the food.
我们有发现，我们这边是不是靠近海边很近？好，但虽然靠近海边很近，但是它的水都是淡水，从以前200-300年到现在它都是淡水。然后最主要它的水没有什么一些我们地下水的味道，没有，也不会有铁质。一般我们地下水有铁质的话，它都会黄黄的，好，但是它都没有，嘿。然后它的味道，等一下你可以用一些在嘴巴，然后再吐出来，嘿，它是没味道的啊，大家可以来试试。我也在配音啊。在笑脸。
用鳃呼吸，它需不需要水？陆地它在高潮线离水比较远的地方，一定要挖洞挖下去才有水啊。它挖水有3个目的：第一个呼吸，第二个保温，第3个防止天敌来吃它。所以说它可以躲在洞里面，它要挖洞才能够在陆地上时间长，才能够长治久安。这是路线为什么要挖这个？
Wow, that is amazing. It really is great. That was really good.
Program, yeah. So I think I have given more time for Professor Banares for answering. I think there's some questions coming up.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
would you like to answer one?
Yeah, sure.
Some of them. Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
But before that, let me just say that that was a really great program. It's somewhat similar to what we do with STEP, except that STEP is a 12-week training program, and the students actually engage in business while they're studying. So it's very
Oh,
similar to,
that's great.
and I know that
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
program is really, really good. I saw some of the startups that they came up with. I think this is a great idea. I hope that we can collaborate in that area someday.
Of course. Yeah, this is because of pandemic. But actually, we like to participate. We initially want to participate APYE in Asia. Is
Yeah.
yeah. So it's the first time to held in Kaohsiung, but because of pandemic, so we do another alternatives to invite for overseas students in Taiwan, study in Taiwan, to join our camp. Yeah, but if it is once the pandemic's gone away, I think I would like to invite students from our sister university, such like BIcol, Non-Lam University, Tanjung Palas students, and also professors come into the camp. Yeah, and to give it more instruction or comments for each groups. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of like
So that would be great. I would look forward to it.
I look forward to that. Okay, so we have a question from Jan Xavier Abainsa, and the question is, how about social enterprises? Are they also scalable as startups for commercialization, and what would be their relevance in promoting economic development in the Philippines? First, my answer to your first question is that definitely social enterprises count as scalable startups. In fact, in the ecosystem mapping of the Philippines for the startup ecosystem mapping for the Philippines for 2021, the focus is on social enterprises. Is there have been a lot of social enterprises that were created because of the pandemic. So definitely, social enterprises are scalable startups. They definitely are. We have a lot of examples. In fact, we have one locally. If you guys know, Lola Sayong Surf Camp is actually a social enterprise, and they had to pivot because of the pandemic. So, as you know, before the pandemic, they were a surf camp. There's a surf camp in another area of BIcol, and they provide surfing lessons. But because they didn't have tourists anymore, they had to pivot and they had to redirect their business endeavors. So now they engage in farming. And if you invest in the farm for, let's say, I think it's about 10,000 pesos, in exchange of that, you can get free surfing lessons and 15 days of accommodations and food in the surf camp. So that's what they've done. So definitely, yes, social enterprises are scalable startups for commercialization. They are very, very relevant in promoting economic development in the Philippines. The good thing about social enterprises is that they encompass or they embrace a lot of communities. They put together a lot of communities and address their needs. An example of this is Rural Rising. It's also a startup in the Philippines where Rural Rising, what it does is to go to the far-flung areas in the Philippines and they get the farmers' produce that would otherwise rot. You know, in the news, we sometimes see vegetables rotting on the side of the road because they can't reach the markets anymore. Well, Rural Rising, as a social enterprise, comes in and buys those produce or those products from farmers at a higher price and then sells them to the market. So definitely, yes, social enterprises are very relevant and scalable startups for commercialization in the country. I think I have another one here. I'm sorry, but I can't read her name. But she asked if we could give an example of student startups in BIcol University. Yes. Okay, there. Well, the presently we only have third year students because of the adjustment we did when we changed the educational system of the country. So we only now have third-year students. We don't have fourth-year students yet who are to engage in thesis writing or in OJT or on-the-job training. So for now, the only startups I can give you as an example from BIcol University are the startups made by our students from the College of Business, Economics, and Management, the entrepreneurship students who have, for the past, since 1982, have been putting together their own businesses as a requirement. Like they cannot graduate without engaging in business. So we've had students come up with different kinds of food innovation. They've established their own restaurants, their own cafes, have even made it to national newspapers, as some of them engaged in a pet cafe. One still exists until now, which is a boutique, and she sells clothes online. So we have a lot of students actually who have established their own startups over the years. But what I'm looking forward to the most is when next year, now that we have a TBI, or a technology business incubator, we can actually now help technology-based businesses and help them scale up. And I'm looking forward to some of our students from the entrepreneurship department as well, who already have business plans and are to be implemented next year. Hopefully, in the next years, I will also be able to see our students from non-business courses like civil engineering, mechanical engineering, industrial technology, to come to Silly Delhi and be incubated as startups as well. So that's something that we really want to look forward to. So I hope that, I think there is another question. What is the government policy for supporting youth startups? Presently, we have the Innovation Startup Act of the Philippines, and this covers youth startup as well. So the government provides funds and helps government agencies and universities like us to put up facilities where the youth can have access to services and technologies to help them with their startups. So that's it. The Innovation Startup Act of 2018. I hope that answers your question. Any other question? There's one from Ria Sandora. Considering that many startup businesses right now, how to make those startups be sustainable and able to compete nationally and internationally, since we know that startups are fragile? Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that the best answer I can give you with this is the best startup are the ones that solve a problem, that address a need in the market. You can't just say, I have a product and I'm going to sell it, and then that's it. No, you really have to look at the market and understand, is this what they need? Or if you see that it's not what they need, you ask yourself, how do they need it? After all, a lot of very successful startups started with identifying a problem. For example, Uber, a ride-hailing app, started with the fact that they thought that $80 taxi fares were too expensive. And so they said, why can't we just have, share the taxi ride and minimize the cost? And from there, it grew into bigger proportions. And then you also have Airbnb. And Airbnb started as a startup that with two guys who didn't have a place to live. And so at a time where there was a big conference in New York City, they rented out air mattresses to 4 individuals. And they solved their problem because those 4 individuals couldn't find a hotel anymore. So that's what they did. They don't have a hotel. They don't have anything to rent out except for the bed space that they provided. And from there, it grew. And it all begins with understanding what people needed. It all begins with understanding what the market needs. And I think that the best kinds of startups are the ones that solve a problem. So my advice to you is identify a problem that you would be happy to provide a solution to. And from there, think about an idea, a business idea of how you can solve that problem. So think of a problem, find a problem in the world, and address that by creating a startup. That's the best kind of startup, in my opinion. Another one from Cindy. How does the government communicate with enterprises, and how do enterprises express their needs to the government? There are a lot of, like for example, recently the DTI is conducting the startup ecosystem mapping throughout the Philippines. So this is sort of to understand what is going on with startups, what they need, what is lacking, how government can further help. So this is done through different types of agencies, and they conduct research. And I think that's also where the university comes in. I think that the university plays a key role in understanding and bringing the message of startup or the startup community to the government. So there, I hope that answers your question. I don't know if there's a direct hotline in the Philippines where enterprises can communicate directly to the government, but I do know that these are done. Communication is done by government agencies doing researches or conducting forums where there's an exchange of ideas.
Great answer.
Question.
But I have a question for Professor Banares. Yeah, I think you just mentioned several funding policy from government. Yeah, so I would like to know that do you have a special government agency probably in central or in a province government that is mainly responsible for the youth employment? Because in Taiwan, we have that in our central government, and also in Kaohsiung City, like the video clips that I just showed, it's funded by the Bureau of Youth in Kaohsiung Municipal Government. So yeah, I'm just wondering that whether the Philippines has a special government unit or
I don't think that there's an agency specifically targeted for youth employment, is there? But there are other agencies that have programs for youth.
Yeah, we also have the Tayo program.
Yeah, there's one. Then we also have the TESDA programs for out-of-school youth. There are a lot of agencies. There isn't a central agency that handles youth employment, but there are a lot of government agencies that have programs directed for youth employment, on the other hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. We have another question from
okay. Mary. From Mary, I think.
Oh. Mary Joy.
Oh.
What would the Philippines need more to grow the startup community? For the Filipinos to have an entrepreneurial mindset. We are a country with Filipinos who have been trained to study hard and look for a job, but we never are given the option to pursue entrepreneurship. Yes? A lot of you kids have parents who tell you, study hard, and then look for a job, and then find employment. But none of you really are ever given the option that with what you study, you can create a business, you could pursue entrepreneurship. So for me, I think even with all these infrastructure, all these systems, all these programs in place, if Filipinos do not have an entrepreneurial mindset for growth and sustainability, then I don't think that we'll really ever succeed in terms of growing our entrepreneurship ecosystem. So what we need is for us to really develop and embrace an entrepreneurial mindset. So I hope that answers your question, Miss Milka. And then another question, what factors are determined in the success of a startup? If we're talking technicality, it would mean that they would have earned 1 million pesos in our terms, based on our guidelines in Silly Delhi. In order for them to graduate, they would have had to earn that much. But I think that in a greater sense, factors that would determine the success of a startup would be to have survived more than 3 years in the Philippine economy. That's one thing. Another one is for them to have expanded, to have scaled up. Another is that they've employed a lot of people. They've created employment, really. And mostly, really, I think it's about the amount of investors that they've gained, and also, of course, the profit that they've made over the years. So I think those are the success factors of startups. This is a very good question. Can you share any idea how a startup could actually help in addressing a certain issue in the Philippines, specifically regarding food safety? Food security, yes. We have a lot of startups addressing food security. We have, aside from the one that I mentioned, Rural Rising, we also have Capital. But specifically for food security, I'm not aware of any startups at present. Maybe that's an opportunity for you. If you are interested in food safety, then maybe you could develop a startup addressing that. Do we have a lot of problems when it comes to food safety? If yes, then that's something that you could address creatively by creating your own startup. So that's an opportunity for you. So I'm going to throw that question back at you, Ms. Partosa. So no, right now I don't know any startups that address food safety. But if you have an idea, about a startup regarding food safety, we'd be happy to help you develop that idea. Just reach out to us at Philly Deli. We'd be happy to help.
Yeah.
Okay, I think no. Are there any other questions?
Okay. So, Dr. Dim Sum, do you have questions or comments to add?
Yeah. Actually, it's a rejoinder. It's a rejoinder from the question of John Xavier of like asking what would be the relevance of social enterprises in promoting economic development in the Philippines, because as of the moment we have like 998,348 business enterprises in the Philippines as of March 2021, and 99.5% of which are said to be micro, small, and medium enterprises, and 52% are said to be social enterprises. So just imagine, when we talk about social enterprises, these are not stereotypical type of businesses wherein they just focus on earning profit, right? So it's not just about economic values, because social entrepreneurship is also about like doing good to the community. It's about like giving access or social equity to the people, and trying also to solve some environmental issues. So it's basically the relevance of social enterprises in the Philippine economy right now, or in promoting economic development, is more focused on not just on economic values, but also on social values and, of course, environmental contents. These all three boil down into one common thought, and that's what you call sustainability. So the relevance, imagine without the 52% social enterprises in the Philippines, there could be no 99.52% micro, small businesses, micro, small, and medium enterprises in the Philippines. And they are also responsible of almost 38% total job growth in the Philippines just for the first quarter of 2021. So imagine that. That's why we value most entrepreneurship and innovation as well when it comes to promoting startups in the Philippines, and of course trying to consider commercialization for these startups of social enterprises.
Thank you, Sir Dean.
Yeah, and another one I'd like also to add on the. I'm actually finding the question from Milka. Yeah, what would the Philippines need more to grow the startup community? You're basically right, Ma'am Crescia. That's why BIcol University is championing on this step, right? Like we're calling it. It was presented by Professor Banares about the student training for entrepreneurial promotion, wherein it's a 12-week training program for non-business students. So the concept of which is more on trying to teach non-business students entrepreneurship and making entrepreneurship as a valuable career option. So maybe it can be a good fallback on their career if they'll not be very successful in their chosen field. So basically, they can just grab this opportunity, the entrepreneurial training that they got from the STEP. They can make it as their strategic career option in the long run. So that's why we are dead serious about promoting entrepreneurship and making it also part of our general education curriculum as one of the subjects that they cannot graduate without entrepreneurial mind. That's one of the part of our general education curriculum. So that's one way or another, like how we promote good startup mindset in the Philippines, particularly in the academia. So that's all, I guess.
Thank you, Sir Dimson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dimson.
Other questions? Is it okay if I answer some more?
Of course. Yeah, yes, we have time.
Okay,
we have a couple of questions coming up.
Okay. What do a startup need to pay attention in the right period of COVID-19? I think what our audience is asking is that what kinds of startups are good at this time of COVID-19. I don't want to sound bad, but I think that this pandemic really has brought a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs. I mean, you know, in my presentation, I show that Filipinos don't really engage in online purchases or in the online market. But this pandemic has pushed us to engage in downloading apps that would enable us to not go to the supermarket or not, you know, all we do is order in food because it's more convenient for us. It's safer for us. So yes, it is a very good time. The COVID-19, this pandemic really is a really good there are a lot of opportunities right now for anyone to pursue entrepreneurship. I think this also answers Miss Narvarte's question. Amidst the pandemic, is the startup essential? Absolutely. In the Philippines alone, you've seen a lot of businesses, you know, develop because of the pandemic. Like, how many delivery services do we now have in the BIcol region? We have we even have GrabFood. We have Food Panda. Homegrown ones like Favorites, and then we have the one that one of our incubators, Atud. So all these have developed because there is a need for them, and that's because these needs have arose because of the pandemic. So yes, startups are essential even in the pandemic. Another question from Hatini: how to develop startup products and bring that to win the market competition? If there is an existing product, if there is an existing product in the market, the best thing for you to do is to try to understand that product and the producer, and try to see what is it that this product has not delivered just yet. So it's sort of like it's sort of like if you're a guy and you're trying to win over a girl. But then there's another guy who's trying to win her over. You have to understand that other guy and say, what is his weakness? What is he doing? What is he not doing that I can do instead? So in bringing a product to a market and making sure that it wins over the competition, the first thing that you need to do is to understand the competition and to understand the market. That means that you need to understand the customers. There. Ms. Pahe, what do you think are the reasons why the Philippine startup ecosystem is holding back? We've actually seen a lot of growth in this in the Philippines startup ecosystem, but I think that's one of the things holding, honestly, in all honesty, one of the things holding back the startup ecosystem in the Philippines is our mindset. For example, if you guys remember the ride-hailing app, ride-hailing services, Angkas. It was very controversial in our country because the government wouldn't give them a license to operate, right? So I think that that's one of the things that's holding us back. We're not entirely open yet to innovation and entrepreneurship. One thing is that, like in the same way that I answered earlier, I think one of the things holding us back is that only now do we see entrepreneurship as a viable career option. 10 years ago, people wouldn't even imagine engaging in a business when they could easily be securely employed. But now that's kind of changing. In your generation, that's changing, and I'm so happy about it. But I think that that's one of the things that's holding us. So if we improve that, I think that, you know, our ecosystem will really, really. What are the possible consequences of people if a startup is not created? Someone else is gonna do it. Some other guy is going to do the startup and not you. If you fear starting your startup and you fail to create it because because you're afraid of failing, then someone else will definitely come into the market and do it. Someone else with the same idea, with a similar idea, will do it. That's what will happen. Another one from Cindy. I think this is for Sir Dimson.
I think the business, startup, government, and education are important, but in the meanwhile, the action from personal and family are needed too. What's doctor's opinion? Yeah, true. Actually, we are venturing into the thought about trying to make the tripartite collaboration between the government, the academe, and of course the industry, just to cover some issues. And the action from personal and family are needed too. Yes, of course, I do agree. I do agree. And I'd like also, Ma'am Crescia, to add about the implication of COVID-19 pandemic in the business industry right now. Just to give you statistics, there were 525,000 businesses closing as of the moment due to the pandemic. So there are 525,000 in distress, businesses in distress because of the pandemic. So imagine that contributed to about 12.6% this business discontinuance rate in our country. And the common cause is, they're having a hard time to cope with the challenges of the pandemic, as far as sustaining the operations of their businesses are concerned.
Absolutely. But then, despite that, I think that there are a lot of startups who also were created in the time of the pandemic. So sustaining a business is really difficult. Starting a business is easy. I think there's another question that says, what will happen if a startup is not created? Like I said, another person is going to do it. I've started a total of 5 businesses. 3 of them were businesses where I was the first mover. I actually was the first person to establish a co-working space in Legazpi City. But at that time, people still didn't understand the importance of co-working spaces, so that failed. But the reason why I did it is because I wanted to be the first to do it. So if you fail to do a start, if you have a business idea and you failed not to do it, then the only thing that will happen is someone else is going to come into the market and do it. Another from
Irene.
Irene. No, there's another one before that. Hello. According to you, what qualities make a person become an entrepreneur? Okay. Let me answer this first. The successful startup always comes with great technology. Do you agree with this statement? I think that technology plays a huge part in making sure that startups really are successful. However, in my personal opinion, I think that the heart of a startup is whether or not your startup actually answers a need or that it solves a problem. Because even with the technology, if it doesn't solve a problem, it's still not going to work. The very first thing that you should do, one should focus on, is answering a problem and providing a solution for that. Everything else will follow. So I think that with technology, yes, it helps, but the most important thing is answering a problem. What qualities make a person become an entrepreneur? Well, you know, a lot of times people say that you have to be a risk taker to be an entrepreneur. That, yes, that counts a lot. But I think that one of the first things that you should do in becoming an entrepreneur is that you really should be good at identifying opportunities. Like if you see something, you automatically say, this is a good thing for a business. So that's one skill that you should have. That's one quality that you should have. But beyond that, you should be willing to take that opportunity to the next level and take the risk. That's where the risk taking comes in, and take the risk and engage in business. I think that what qualifies a person to become an entrepreneur is the willingness to fail. Because entrepreneurship, it's inevitable. When you engage in entrepreneurship, failure is always present. So if I think that the best quality an entrepreneur must have is that they're willing to fail and learn from it.
From failure, you're willing to innovate.
Yes. Yes, to constantly and continually innovate.
Proactively innovate.
Yes, exactly. Another question on what ways the youth should do in order to contribute to the startup community, to the startup ecosystem of the country, from Ms. Narvarte again. I think what you can do to contribute is you guys have the best ideas. I mean, I talked to my 12-year-old kid and he has these crazy ideas, and the youth has the best ideas in the world. And I think that you should not just bring those ideas to TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, but really make something out of it. You have these really great ideas of how to solve a problem. So I think that with that creativity and innovation, you guys could start a business. You guys could start. You guys could really develop a startup, and that's how you could contribute to the startup community in the country. Use your creativity and innovation. There, I think I've answered all the questions. If there are more, I'd be happy if you still have time. But
yeah. Thank you very much for Professor Banares. I mean, we have a little bit time. Maybe we can to ask Dean Tree, Professor Tree. Do you have any comments or your insights, appreciation for the startup experience in Vietnam? Could you share a little bit with us? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I must confess that thank you, Ding, for asking, but that I have very little knowledge on the innovation, in here in Vietnam, except that several meetings that we, at the university level, that we discussed about this, and in 2014 we have a national project, a big project on the innovation that's supported by the World Bank to help the Vietnam government, that more than $100 million for that innovation project. And it turned out that it's not really, for me, I thought that it's not really a successful project. Because in here, because I know that there's some delays in the the release of funding from the World Bank, and the bureaucracy in the selection process, that not many people who I need to participate in that innovation, technology innovation project. So yeah, I think I learned a lot from this presentation, and what I'm thinking is how to benefit students from this kind of exchange idea of exchange the experience in the country. About a few years ago, we also conducted one training for students from Chiba University, where I'm also visiting professor there. And one professor, or two professors from Chiba, they came with a group of students from Japan, and they come and study about the Vietnamese business. They learn about some of they have students to explore the business opportunities here in Vietnam, and they go around the country and they have a opportunity to exchange ideas and with the student, and they did a great job. Like Professor CrestiaBanares said that each student they already have in mind, they have some good idea how to do business. When they look at the some products in Vietnam and how to create, they work together in group, and each group they themselves already have a very interesting idea of to develop a business with that. So I think that those kind of things that how we can discuss in the future when the pandemic over, and even right now on online, I think that we can have some group of students from Taiwan, from Philippines, from Vietnam, and I believe that they have a more creative business model that they can present.
Looking forward to that collaboration. I think that this is a great opportunity for everyone to learn. I mean, I personally had a lot of fun. We have so much to share about entrepreneurship and innovation, and we'd be happy to share them with you. Always happy to collaborate.
Yeah. Thank you very much for Professor Banares and all this, the participants online, and Dr. Dimson and Dr. Trees. Wonderful discussion and wonderful lectures. And we will also learn a lot from your speech and from your insightful comments. And recently, I mean, in Taiwan, I think the youth, because of the boost of these electronic commerce, so there are many young people become YouTubers.
It's a trend.
Yeah, that's right. So even in our university, some faculty members from the Department of Information Management, they also start up a new course program that helping youth people to become a good YouTubers. And how to promote themselves and their
enroll.
Yeah, online.
Enroll in that.
Yeah, we'll enroll. Just give us details.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's about time. So once again, I would like to appreciate for Professor Banares, Dr. Dimson, and Dr. Trees, all the participants for your support. And for next week, we will have Professor Helma Manini from the Tanjung University of Indonesia for next. She's going to give us a speech about the behavior economics and financial literacy from the Asia perspective. So we look forward for the next week's wonderful speech. Okay, so once again, I would like to appreciate for all your support and your wonderful insightful comments and lectures. And I hope the participant today will learn a lot and to be motivated to become a youth enterprisers, maybe. Okay, so I look forward to see you next week. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. 再见.
Thank you.
再见. Bye-bye.